Hello. So we just have done the chakra techniques, and from a crystal therapy healing point of view, I think most people are familiar with crystals in terms of working with the chakras. So to start off with, when people are putting kits together, how do you actually put together a range of crystals to work with the chakras?
It's very simple. You just go for a balanced spectrum of colours.
Right.
Red, orange, yellow, green, turquoise, blue, indigo, violet, and black and white.
Maybe some pink.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pinks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the techniques we've done, you build up your greens, you build up your reds.
Yeah.
Yes. So you don't have to run out and get specific types of stones. It's basically the colours that you're building up.
Yeah. And it's best with tumbled stones as well. Get the polished tumbled stones because they tend to be less prone to damage because they're already hard enough to tumble, and it means that they're not so difficult to keep in good condition and they're easy to put on the body.
And obviously from things like some of the more complex work with chakras, you'll need some clear quartz points as well.
Okay.
A lot of clear quartz points, small clear quartz points is good, and if you can get small smoky quartz points and amethyst points as well, that's useful.
Okay.
But you start off just by being attracted to certain colours, certain stones in certain colours, get the stones that you like, and then after a while you usually end up with more of one colour than another, so just consciously go for a few stones of other colours so you've got a good range.
Now there's the rainbow layout, which has the rainbow colours on that particular chakra. Okay. Now my first question is that compared to some books, say, you seem to be a bit more flexible in terms of what colours can go on what chakras. So why is that?
Well, the thing is that remember that the rainbow relationship to chakras is actually historically relatively recent. All to do with sevens and other numerological things back from 1960s and from the 1920s. And so this concept of spectrum and chakras is actually quite new in the understanding of how chakras work. But as a model it works very well. And so the main colour that we associate is the overall energy of the chakra, but within each chakra there, if you like, there's also the whole of the chakra energies within each chakra, so potentially any colour can go on any chakra.
Okay.
Thinking that it's rigid is actually misunderstanding how the relationship and the correspondence as well.
And does that also bring in that colour therapy, that you've got the warm colours energise, the cool colours calm things down? So bringing, say, for example, a blue onto the base chakra might be what it needs because it actually cools the energy down. Does it also work in that way?
One level anyway. Although it's a mistake to think that blues are going to be cooling in all instances.
Right.
It depends how that energy interacts with the energy of the individual. So we're less worried about why an appropriate colour is required there, and more about choosing the best colour for that place.
Okay. Now you once said that when you're approaching the chakra system, you shouldn't be rigid in terms of how it should react or what it should do. Why is that? Why should we be very open-minded about a person's energy?
Well, the thing is that the chakra system, as most people in the West understand it, is a very small part of a much bigger energy map. And so therefore to be too rigid about it misunderstands the fact that it's a completely integrative system that actually exists on many different levels and in many different ways. And it's very hard to get an intellectual handle on it. So it's best not to be too intellectual about it.
Okay.
So for example, at a physical level, an energy centre or chakra might be working efficiently, but there may be a block or a problem at an emotional or a spiritual level. So everything's working okay on one level, but at a finer level, there are some fractures going on, some problems. And if it's appropriate to deal with those, if those are interfering with the functioning of the person at that time, then it would be appropriate to deal with those. But sometimes there are things that are embedded within the energy structure which are quite deep aspects of the personality, although they are damaging aspects, they're quite deep, and so it would be inappropriate to deal with those at any other time. So it's really a matter of isolating what is appropriate to deal with, what energy is appropriate, to create an overall balance in the system.
And let's remember that the human's energy system, or human body on many levels, is incredibly flexible,
Right.
and will always tend to find ways around problems. Anyway, so you have got an incredible flexibility that exists already.
It's a bit like if you think of a road system, when there's a crash somewhere, it'll build up a backup of vehicles behind it to some extent, but after a while the rest of the traffic will be going off on side roads and finding others ways round. And it's the same with every energetic system as well. Never is something, if you're still alive, the energy is moving around the system in some way. If it stops, then that's when you have problems, serious life problems. The other thing about functioning of chakras is that the level of activity of each focus will vary depending on what that individual is doing at that time.
Right.
So if somebody's studying, they'll have energies focused towards encouraging study and focus. If they're doing physical activity, then other energy centres will tend to be more energised.
Right.
So depending on what somebody's lifestyle is, or what somebody's doing at any particular time, some energy centres will be relatively more energised than others, but they are appropriately energised. What we're dealing with in crystal therapy is trying to deal with the inappropriate discrepancies and bringing out a functioning flow that is appropriate to that individual, not appropriate to an idealised sort of human being state.
So if somebody came along and said, oh, there's too much energy there and there's not enough there, and they shifted the energy around, but actually the energy needed to be in lower chakras, say, because of who that person was at that time, it wouldn't actually be appropriate.
That's why you're always looking at what's appropriate for that person. And people vary. And so it's having the flexibility to deal with people as an individual. That's the key.
Okay. Now, something you've said once is that the Victorians had a very sort of rigid view of the chakra system in terms of these were good chakras and these weren't so good chakras, or we need to evolve beyond the lower chakras.
Yes.
Now, is that still the case, do you feel?
Yes, very much so. There was a lot of avoidance, or thinking that the functions or the issues to do with the lower three chakras in particular were the animal's self, and therefore were to be distanced from, to evolve, or what have you. But the thing is that you only get spiritual development if the rest of the system is anchored and functioning.
Yeah.
So you can't work ignoring the needs of those chakras that are lower in the body. They are as important, if not more important, if for physical health, and if you want to actually develop yourself in a spiritual direction, you need those to be functioning really, really well, to be able to maintain anything and to maintain your contact with reality.
The other thing to remember is that the information about the chakras was basically drawn up and codified in the Himalayan regions, and there were different schools that had different ways and different approaches, like there is in any philosophical or religious culture. So depending on which texts were translated and which were sort of, oh, we like that, this accords to our Victorian point of view, we'll translate these rather than these which are a bit dodgy and we don't really like the viewpoint here. It tended towards translating stuff which was appropriate or interesting to the 19th, early 20th century viewpoint. So there are always almost diametrically opposed, opposite viewpoints within a tradition, because they're looking at things from a different point of view. The texts that tended to be translated were from quite ascetic philosophical viewpoints, which, like the more fundamental Christian viewpoints, and in fact any religious viewpoint, tend to play down or denigrate the physical in preference to the spiritual or elevated states. So there's that tendency as well all the time, transcending the physical to attain the spiritual.
And this even happens in colours. You know, people will assume that, or will take the viewpoint that violet is a much more spiritual colour than red. You know, and that is a very erroneous stance to take, because all are required for wholeness. One is not better than the other.
Okay.
And the same goes for chakras. One is not better than the other. You need the whole lot.
Okay. Next question. So, in some systems, they talk about the chakras need to rotate clockwise or anti-clockwise. Now, in our tradition, we don't come at it from that point of view. Why is that?
Because it varies so much and it's so individual. You know, there were, way back it was like, if you're male, your root chakra rotates this way, and if you're female, it rotates this way, and the next chakra up should do the other thing, what have you. But in reality, that is a bit of a construct.
Right.
And it's also assuming that chakras are flat discs, so that rotation is like a two-dimensional, rather than an actual three-dimensional, multi-active thing, which I think is actually...
So it comes back to the rigidity of thought again.
Yeah, and the tradition as well. So that sort of clockwise, anti-clockwise, sort of, you can see it coming from the image of the main three spinal channels. In some traditions, the male channel is on the left and the female channel on the right, but in other traditions, it's the other way around. And so the flow will be seen or perceived or understood to be going that way rather than that way. But if you look at that from above, it's going anti-clockwise, but if you look at it that way, it's going clockwise.
Okay.
It's going the same way, but from one angle it looks anti-clockwise, and the other way it looks clockwise, but the movement is the same direction.
So the best
it's
thing,
a point of view.
So the best thing is to approach your client with an open mind, a pendulum or grounded intuition, or perhaps muscle testing, and tune in and see what's appropriate for them at that time.
And don't necessarily dismiss other people's systems if the systems are effective and they work.
Right.
You have to be a little open. You can't say, well, that's complete nonsense because it doesn't go this way, it goes the other way. Just because you've learned that doesn't mean that that isn't going to be effective.
But it's also understanding that it sometimes is just sheer, like that rotation, it is just point of view. You know, and if you change your viewpoint, you suddenly see it actually looks as though it's doing the opposite thing. Yeah.
The other thing with that's often, I think it still is to some extent, is that maybe less than it used to be, is the term open and closed chakras. As if they're like valves, so open and closed. Rather than using those rather sort of harsh terms, we tend to prefer under-energised and over-energised.
Right. More balanced and out of balance.
Yeah.
Because the idea that a chakra can be shut is, the person would be dead if it wasn't functioning. So we tended to use balance and out of balance.
And there's also this thing that David Frawley has about a chakra can be open on one level but still dormant on another level because spiritually they're not...
That's right, and so, you know, being sort of black and white judgmental about it really misses the individuality
of who they are and what they're exploring
and
in
how
their
they're
lifetime.
expressing themselves.
Yes, that can be very confusing to the therapist and also deceptive as well if something seems to be very well balanced at one level but yet there are problems in people's lives or whatever, then it means that there are imbalances somewhere else in the system.
Okay. So
plus the fact, of course, the client doesn't need to be told that so-and-so chakra is shut or so-and-so chakra. You know, it's like it's using the language that's not going to scare the client either.
Okay. 2 last questions. So we can do it in a very general way, but we can actually focus in on a specific area or issue or topic, etc. I'm supposing that that also has to be in agreement with the person's body as well as their ego in terms of...
Yeah, is it appropriate?
Is it appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said that it's a good thing to actually put the stones to one side and talk through with the client, you know, what was happening there. Now, do you need to go into the, this is chrysoprase and it's da-da-da?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, it's just to give a generality.
Yeah.
Because also it helps to engage the client into what's actually going on,
Okay.
rather than them just feeling that they're being done to.
Right. So is it quite useful to have an understanding of the colour?
The colour is the easiest way to describe what's going
happening
on.
Yeah.
So you've got green stones, then there's a lot of things to do with boundaries, relationships, space, growth,
Yeah.
things like that. It's better to say something general like that, which people understand in terms of their experience in their lives,
Yeah.
rather than saying, "Oh, this is very good for your kidneys, and therefore you must have something wrong with your kidneys or your kidney
So
energy."
it's good to build up an understanding about how colour works,
Mm.
rather than go rushing off to the books each time.
Talk in terms of colour, because even if the book gives pages and pages of information that have been channeled or intuited or whatever about any stone, there's still, how do you know which part is important or relevant to the individual or not, if anything at all? It may be the smallest of reasons why the body has selected that stone for that purpose.
And it's always good to have a grounding stone.
Yes.
Yes.
Because without the grounding, there's no integration, and when energies aren't integrated, there's no healing.
Okay, thank you.